Welcome to the Nerdstalgic Podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
This swashbuckling tale follows the quest of Captain Jack Sparrow, a savvy pirate and will-turner resourceful blacksmith, as they search for Elizabeth Swan. Elizabeth, the daughter of the governor and the love of Will's life, has been kidnapped by the feared Captain Barbossa. Little do they know, but the fierce and clever Barbossa has been cursed. He, along with his large crew, are under an ancient curse, doomed for eternity to live nor die. That is, unless a blood sacrifice is made. Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. Howdy beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Nerdstalgic Podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Human. Hope you're doing well, hope you're all good, as per usual. As you heard in that lovely plot summary done by yours truly, today's topic is going to be talking about Pirates of the Caribbean, the Curse of the Black Pearl. Oh, you beans, you do not understand how excited I am right now to begin this journey into the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I love pirates. I do. I love pirates so much. I would have not liked to have been one because, I don't really want to deal with scurvy and, I can swim, but I don't like deep water. So, yeah, I've never even actually been out to sea on a boat, so I don't even know if I have sea legs, but I love pirates and the idea and concept and the whole lore behind pirates and the pirate code. I love it all. I've read books on it. Both fiction and non-fiction books about it. I love anything to do with pirates. It's just, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's a little boy in me. The idea that we all love pirates and we all like dinosaurs, and they just work hand in hand together. But I love pirates, so I'm really, really excited. But before I melt down into a pot of gold while I talk about pirates, gotta do a little bit of housekeeping. Because I like to keep my house nice and clean, unlike pirates, where actually, tell you the truth, pirates are actually very clean. But anyway, they're not like what you see in films. Pirates actually had rules. They actually went to bed at 8 o'clock. They had rules, and it wasn't as lawless as you think. Pirates, and I'm going to go off on a bit of a waffle now. But they had bedtimes, so a lot of ships on pirate ships, they had a curfew at 8 o'clock. They'd all go to bed. All the booty wasn't given to the captain; it was all shared among all members of the crew, even like the Scully boy. He even got a share to the captain. It was all fair. It was a bit like it wasn't a dictatorship. It was kind of like, oh, I don't know how to explain it really. It was like everybody was together. Of like, you pulled your weight, and you got a share, and everybody, and a mutiny had to be agreed upon, and it wasn't like what you see in the films. Mutinies were like, they were bad, but they were sort of taken seriously. Like if you see mutiny, it wasn't as like what you see in films. Basically, pirates are fascinating. The whole idea and concept behind pirates is a lot more in depth than any film ever sort of gives them credit, really. If you ever like to be interested in just learning more about pirates, there's tons of books out there. I love it. But anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, so I'm a bit sort of confuzzled at the moment because I just love pirates and I just want to talk about them, and I can talk about them all day every day, but first I want to keep my house nice and clean. So before I get into it, before I waffle again, make sure that you follow me on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod to be kept up to date on anything that I am doing and we'll be talking about. Also, if you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe and all that jazz. It helps me out immensely. It means a lot to me. So this is my plan. So before I get on another tangent and go crazy about pirates again, let me get my plans out and let me get my sort of idea and concept of what my plans are for this series. So I want to cover the first 3 movies of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Now you're probably thinking, Luke, there's more than 3. There's 5. I know there is. But I will admit, so I know some people disagree with me, the first three Pirates movies are perfect. In my opinion, there's nothing wrong with them. If anything, like fine wine, they got better as they went on, and they've actually gotten better with age. Especially the first one. The first one is a perfect pirate adventure, and Davy Jones in Dead Man's Chest is some of the best acting. And also some of the best CGI you'll ever see. Even today, even today's standards, the only thing that's ever gotten close, and I would even say get close to Davy Jones, is Thanos in the Avengers in terms of how the CGI looks so real. And nothing apart from that, nothing else has been able to compete. Not even I would say Avatar. I know people would disagree with me there, but I generally think it's that good. And again, at World's End, perfect, absolutely perfect. I would have been happy for this trilogy to end with the first three films and not get another one ever again. I would have been fine with that, but they didn't. They did um, As Stranger's Tides, the fourth one, and they did Salazar's Revenge. I like Stranger Tides. At Stranger Tides. It's not terrible, but it's not great. It doesn't hold a candle to the first three, but it's watchable. It's one that I was like, it's not great, but I can watch it. And then Salazar's Revenge. Well, I'd be honest, I'd rather forget that I ever seen it. I really, really would. I deeply, inherently did not like that movie. I didn't like the betrayal of how Captain Jack was. He was played as an idiot, and it really was like if you watch the first, like to the one we're going to talk about today, the Black Pearl, and if you watch that one and then you skipped all the movies and went straight to Salazar's Revenge, you'd be like, what happened to him? Why is he an idiot? Why is he a clown? Like he is not Captain Jack Sparrow anymore. He's just a buffoon. Um, and they did, and I'll be honest, that's one of many reasons I don't like the last Pirates movie. But we might never get there. We might do. It depends. If I get past the first three films, which I will do with ease because I love them so much. But if you beans after I done at World's End, if you beans want me to do Stranger Tides and Salazar's Revenge, I will reluctantly do Salazar's Revenge. But only if you beans want it. If nobody wants it, I'll happily not talk about them. But if you ask, I will. Or if there's enough love and if there's enough people listening and um, enjoying them, then maybe I'll do more and I'll put myself through that trauma for you all. Um, but yeah, so that's my plan. I'm going to cover the first three movies and then we'll see what happens after that. But like I said, I have a huge love for pirates. I do. My sort of memories growing up was that like my sister was older than me, so she would be off with her friends and doing things. So majority of the time I'd be playing in my room or would be playing in the back garden. And as young boys do, we have imaginary friends and we make up games. And I'm sure that I'm not the only one. I'd go outside when it was snowing. I would put my big coat on and I'd pretend that I was in the Arctic or I was on a snowy planet and I was on my own. And I would talk to myself quietly as I would go around. And when it comes to the pirates, I remember many times that I would get my pillows on my bed and pretend that my bed was a ship and that around my bed was all ocean. And I would get my toys up on like my shelves and I would throw things at them, pretend they were cannibals. You know, I, it's just a deep love we have. And again, I'm not sure what it is, why people. I wasn't going to say boys, but anybody could love pirates. But why is that deep inherent love of pirates? Why is that deep inherent love of like dinosaurs and things like that? Like we all grew up with like we all have a favorite dinosaurs. Is a Stegosaurus. I love a Stegosaurus. It's my favorite dinosaur. I even like the one that Aladar played, which is a oh god, the name's escaped me. I've lost all credibility of dinosaur love. But we all sort of grow up with love for these sort of ideas and concepts of piracy and stuff like that. And I remember when the movies first came out, especially Pirates of the Caribbean, when this film first came out, it absolutely it blew me away because again, I was at that age where I was 2003, so I was born in 1998. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I was 5 years old. I was at the perfect age for this series to really take over my life, and it did greatly. I remember watching the Black Pearl for the first time and just being enamored by the characters, by the world, and being able to see actual pirate movies. Because I'll be honest with you, majority of the pirate movies that I grew up with were, you had the Muppets Pirate Treasure Planet, Treasure Island, which was fantastic. You also had the black and white Treasure Island, and then you had. I can't remember if it was before or after this. It Disney. I'm gonna have to Google it now. Disney's Treasure Planet. Treasure Planet. So that was 2002. So this came a year before it. So that was my only real, and Treasure Planet being my favorite of all of them before Pirates of the Caribbean. That was my real sort of experience of it. So to see an actual modern, well, modern as in cinema, take on pirates in general was absolutely incredible, and it changed my life really, for my love of pirates, and got me more fascinated in them and more wanting to learn more about them, wanting me to go out and read books, read like the horrible histories books on pirates when I was very younger, and growing up and reading huge tomes and about the history of pirates and about all the different types like Captain Kidd, Blackbeard, and the like. It's so ingrained in who I am, and I wanted to do pirates for so long. I've wanted to do Pirates of the Caribbean for a very long time. I'd planned it back in the first season, but things I had to push it back, and things came up. But I'm so glad I'm finally getting to do it now, and especially with these movies. Blackpool was the one that started it all, and my love of it actually twice. High likelihood it was my first introduction to Johnny Depp as an actor, as a performer. Obviously, Orlando Bloom, I knew him from Lord of the Rings, being Legolas. Didn't know who Keira Knightley was. I didn't know who Jeffrey Rush was, but I came to love them all. I and I'm just even just look. I've got the movies in front of me, so I have them all on DVD. I've got the two disc collector's edition of all three movies, uh, which is got like on Dead Man's Chest, what I've got in front of me, that's got 5 hours of bonus features on it, or they call bonus loot. On the second one, there's tons of hours of bonus content on here, behind the scenes stuff, which if you've all been listening to the podcast long enough, you know I love behind the scenes stuff. Um, and these films, like, I remember when at World's End, the last, well, I class it as the last Pirates movie, when that came out. Um, I remember I begged my parents. We heard on the radio that it was coming out soon in the cinemas, and I had school uh, that day. But my dad was just like, "Well, you know, let's go see it," and we did. We went to go see Pirates of the Caribbean. So I didn't go to school. My parents, we went to go see Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End instead. Obviously, I told the teachers that I wasn't very well, but still, it's one of their memories of like skiving off school to go watch a movie that we loved, and then having to go in the next day and pretend like I hadn't seen the film. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, I haven't seen it, and people are like, oh God, it's coming out, and it's coming soon. And I'm like, yeah, well, pretend like being a young kid, being like pretending, being like, oh, it's good. It looks trailer looks all right. When I've actually seen it and I know how it ends and all that. Um, but yeah, I've had a huge love of the, as you can tell, if that wasn't evident here. But enough gushing, enough blubbering. Time to move on to the actual sort of the meat and potatoes, shall we say, of this review. So the cast for this movie: so we've got Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow, Jeffrey Rush as Captain Barbossa, Orlando Bloom as Will Turner, Keira Knightley as Elizabeth Swann, Jack Davenport as the Admiral Norrington, Jonathan Pryce as Governor Weatherby Swan, Lee Armberg as Pintel, Mackenzie Crook as Raggety, Damien O'Hare as Lieutenant Gillette, Giles New as Mudrot, Angus Barrett as Malloy, David Bally as Cotton. He was Cotton all the way through. Michael Berry Jr. as Twig, Isaac C. Singleton Jr. as Bosun, Kevin McNally as Josephine Gibbs, or as Mr. Gibbs. I didn't even know he had a first name. I was always called him Gibbs. Trevor Ethanine as Cuther, and Zoe Saldana as Amaria, and Guy Sinner as the Harbour Master. So that is the cast of the film. as for the production, so development was actually, there's a lot in the development, and it's going to take me, I have to take a drink of water here. Talk about development. So, in 2001, Jay Walper wrote a script based on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, which is based on a story created by the Walt Disney Studios executives Brigham Taylor, Michael Haynes, and Josh Harmon. This story featured Will Turner as a prison guard who releases Sparrow to rescue Elizabeth, who is being held for ransom money by Captain Blackheart. By March 2002, Disney brought Stuart Beatty in to rewrite the script because of his knowledge of piracy. Beatty stated that he talked about making a pirate movie based on the ride while tossing a frisbee with a friend, and wrote a first draft titled Quests for the Caribbean while on exchange to Oregon State University in 1991. Screenwriters Ted Elliott and Terry Rossino notably thought about a pirate film based on the ride during the early 90s, having pitched the idea after completing work on the 1992 film Aladdin as a premise to the studio executives who were not interested at the time. Undeterred, the writing team refused to give up the dream, waiting for the studio to pick up their take on a pirate tale. Having worked with Disney on Aladdin and the 2000 film Treasure Planet, among other successful films, Elliott and Rossio were also brought in for the Pirates of the Caribbean to give it a more supernatural spin, and Ted Elliott and Terry Rosso were the final writers to receive screenplay credits, while all four writers received screen story by credits. When Dick Crook managed to convince producer Jerry Bruckheimer to join the project, he rejected Jay Walper's script because it was a straight pirate movie. Later in March 2002, Bruckheimer brought Elliott and Rossio, who suggested making a supernatural curse, as described in the original narration of the ride and the pilot's plot and the film's plot. Disney was unsure whether to release the film in theaters or direct-to-video. The studio was interested in Matthew McConaughey as Sparrow because of his resemblance to Burt Lancaster, who had inspired the script's interpretation of the character. If they chose to release it direct-to-video, Christopher Walken or Kay Elwes would have been their first choice. That's quite interesting, McConaughey or Christopher Walken as Sparrow. That would have been a bit weird, but, you know, alternate realities and all that. Anyway, in May 2002, Gore Verbinski signed on to direct Pirates of the Caribbean. He was attracted to the idea of using modern technology to resurrect a genre that had disappeared after the golden age of Hollywood, and recalled his childhood memories of the ride, feeling the film was an opportunity to pay tribute to the scary and funny tone of it. The role of Jack Sparrow was originally written give me one sec, Luke. Specifically for Hugh Jackman. However, he was not well known outside of his native Australia, so Disney cast the more famous Depp as Jack. Jim Carrey was considered for the part, but the production schedule for Pirates of the Caribbean conflicted with Bruce Almighty. How weird that would have been. Don't get me wrong, I love Jim Carrey, but Jim Carrey as Jack Sparrow, I don't see it. I really don't. But wow, that would have been a very different movie. Completely. Other actors considered for the role included Michael Keaton and Christopher Walken. I could have seen Michael Keaton as maybe as a Barbossa, but not as a Jack Sparrow. Maybe because I know Jack Sparrow to be Johnny Depp and Johnny Depp to be Jack Sparrow, but I couldn't see Michael Keaton or Christopher Walken as Jack Sparrow or Hugh Jackman. I could see them as other characters, but no, I couldn't see them as Johnny Depp. Eventually, Johnny Depp was cast as Bruckheimer felt he could give the character the edge, which he definitely did and does. Although Cook had been a strong proponent of adapting Disney's ride into films, the box office failure of The Country Bears 2002 made Michael Eisner attempt to shut down production of Pirates of the Caribbean. However, Verbinski told his concept artist to keep working on the picture. When Eisner came to visit, the executive was astonished by what had been created. As recalled in the book Disney War, Eisner asked, "Why does it have to cost so much? Bruckheimer replied, your competition is spending $150 million referring to the franchise like Lord of the Rings and The Matrix. Eisner concurred, but with the stigma attached to theme park adaptations, Eisner requested Verbinski and Bruckheimer remove some of the more overt references to the ride in the Pirates of the Caribbean script, such as the scene where Sparrow and Turner enter the cave via a waterfall. Another change made was adding the Curse of the Black Pearl as a subtitle should the film be a hit and lend itself to sequels like Raiders of the Lost Ark, which brought protests due to the Black Pearl being the name of the ship and nothing to do with the pirate's curse. Although Verbinski thought the subtitle was nonsense, Eisner refused to back down, and the Curse of the Black Pearl remained the subtitle, although on most posters and trailers the words were so small as to be barely visible. Which is kind of true when I look at my version of the DVD, which is one of the first ones that came out when the movie came out in 2003. It is quite small, even on the front cover. Really, you would just see Pirates of the Caribbean, and that would be it. And even people still to this day just call it Pirates of the Caribbean because easier. Because everybody knows when you say Pirates of the Caribbean, you're talking about Black Pearl. And if you mean the others, you don't even say Pirates of the Caribbean for the rest. You just say Dead Man's Chest, or you say At World's End, and people go, "Yeah, I know what you're talking about." It's the power of the movies, but also the power of the Pirates franchise, of how successful it was. One thing that I found while I was doing my research, and this one really made me laugh, really, was the influence of the Monkey Island series. So Ted Elliott was allegedly writing a George Lucas produced animated film adaptation of The Curse of Monkey Island, which if you haven't played those games, please do. They're incredible. Point and click adventures, some of the best in the business. Go check them out. Anyway, which was cancelled before its original announcement. 3 years prior to the release of Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, this film was allegedly in production at Industrial Light and Magic before being cancelled. Ron Gilbert, the creator of the Monkey Island series, has jokingly expressed a bitterness towards Pirates of the Caribbean films, specifically the second film, for its similarities to his game. Gilbert has also stated that Tim Powers' 1987 novel On Stranger Tides, which was adapted into the fourth Pirates film, was the principal source of inspiration for his video games. Pirates screenwriter Terry Rossio mentioned how Disney was hit with at least 6 plagiarism lawsuits for the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie for supposedly stealing elements of the Monkey Island video games and stuff from the On Stranger Tides novel, despite there being a ride at Disneyland and also a first draft screenplay by other writers. So I find that quite interesting. Also, I find it interesting the fact of at the time this wasn't the case, but now that Disney owns Star Wars and they own Lucasfilm and everything that comes with Lucasfilm, including the Monkey Island games, which Disney now own. I think it's kind of interesting. At the time they were getting plagiarism strikes, but now because they own them, I just find that kind of interesting. And it made me giggle because I'm a big fan of the Monkey Island games. Again, being a pirate fan, then being pirate-centric point and click games, which I love point and click games. So I just found that funny while I was doing my research. So this bit's interesting as well. So the filming and design. So Verbinski did not want an entirely romanticized feel to the film. He wanted a sense of historical fantasy. Most of the actors wore prosthetics and contact lenses. Depp had contacts acted as sunglasses, while Rush and Lee Arnsberg wore dulled contacts that gave a sinister feel to the characters. Mackenzie Crook, who wore 2 contacts to represent his character's wooden eye, a soft version and a harder version for when it protrudes. In addition, their teeth and scurvy skin were dyed on, although Depp did have gold teeth added, which he forgot to remove after filming. Depp also used a genuine pistol, which was made in 1760 in London, which the crew bought from a dealer in Connecticut. A number of swords were built for the production of blacksmith Tony Swatton. The crew spent 5 months creating the cavern in which Barbossa and the Black Pearl crew attempt to reverse their curse, filling it with 5 feet of water, 882 Aztec coins, and some gold paint on the styrofoam rocks for more impressions of treasure. The crew also built the fortress at Port Royal in Rancho Palos Verdes, California. Yeah, Port Royal does no longer exist. I think it was destroyed even in a fire. Sea levels, like it doesn't exist anymore, Port Royal, so that to kind of rebuild it. And Governor Swan's palace was built at Manhattan Beach. A fire broke out in September 2002, causing $525,000 worth of damage, though no one was injured. The filmmakers chose St. Vincent as their primary shooting location, as it contains the quintessential beach they could find, quietest beach they could find, sorry, and built 3 piers and a backlot for Port Royal and Tortuga. Of most importance to the film were the 3 ships, Black Pearl, the Dauntless, and the Interceptor. For budget reasons, the ships were built on docks, with only 6 days spent in the open sea for the battle between the Black Pearl and the Interceptor. The Dauntless and the Black Pearl were built on barges, with computer-generated imagery finishing the structures. The Black Pearl was also built on the Spruce Goose stage, say that with 3 times, in order to control fog and lighting. The Interceptor was a redressed Lady Washington, a full-scale replica sailing ship from Aberdeen, Washington, fully repainted before going on a 40-day voyage beginning December the 2nd, 2002, arriving on location on January the 12th, 2003. A miniature was also built for the storm sequence. Principal photography began on the October the 9th, 2002, and wrapped by March the 7th, 2003. The quick shoot was only marred by 2 accidents, as Jack Sparrow steals the Interceptor, 3 of the ropes attached to it to the Dauntless not to break at first, and when they did snap, debris hit Depp's knee, though he was not injured, and the way the incident played out on the film made it look like Sparrow merely ducks. A more humorous accident was when the boat Sparrow was supposed to arrive in at Port Royal sank. In October, the crew was shooting scenes at Rancho Palos Verdes. By December, they were shooting at St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and in January, they were at a cavern set at Los Angeles. The script often changed, with Elliott and Rossio on set, with additions such as Gibbs, Kevin McNally, telling Will how Sparrow allegedly escaped from an island, strapping 2 sea turtles together with ropes made of his own back hair, and Price was written into the climactic battle to keep some empathy for the audience. Because of the quick schedule of the shoot, Industrial Light and Magic immediately began visual effects work, while the skeletal forms of the pirates revealed by moonlight take up relatively little screen time. The crew knew that their computer-generated imagery forms had to convince in terms of replicating performance and characteristics of the actors, or else the transition would not work. Each scene featuring them was shot twice, a reference plate with the actors and then without them to add in the skeletons. An aesthetic complicated by Verbinski's decision to shoot the battles with handheld cameras. The actors also had to perform their scenes again on the motion capture stage, with the shoot only wrapping up 4 months before release. Verbinski spent 18-hour days on the edit, while simultaneously spending time on 600 effect shots, 250 of which were merely removing modern sailboats from the shots. Wow, a lot went into the first movie. I absolutely love it. I really do, and I'll admit the film has aged fantastically. It has. Like the CGI work that goes into it, the motion capture, the time when the moonlight strikes and you actually see them as dead. It looks good. It doesn't look janky. It doesn't look bad. I've mentioned it before. If CGI is done well and done like really fantastically, it will stand the test of time and it will just look better. The better technology gets in terms of like Blu-ray and things like that, it will always look better. And whereas if you get CGI that wasn't so great, will age like sour milk. And this film hasn't aged like sour milk. This movie has aged like wine. It's only gotten better. And I just love it. I do. It for me, honestly, before I actually get into the review, it generally it just give me my love of cinema, my love of pirates, my love of Johnny Depp, and that has been a huge whirlwind of movies since, and introduced me to all the other films that he's done. Kind of like when I first saw Nicolas Cage in Gone in 60 Seconds with my dad when I was younger. I just fell in love with him as an actor, and I followed Nicolas Cage, and I have done every single movie he's made. I've watched. It's been the same with Johnny Depp. I've watched every single movie he has made from just seeing him in one film, and it's just yeah. This movie has really been a cornerstone for me, for my love of pirates, for anything pirate related, video games, movies, TV shows. Yeah, I even went my final. So I remember when I was in primary school, one of the things that we did, we had a prom before our last day in primary school, and it was a fancy dress. So everybody was going as like Superman, Wonder Woman. Some kids were too cool, so they didn't dress up. Me, on the other hand, I said to my mum, I want to be Captain Jack Sparrow. I have no idea where the photos are because I remember a lot of photos were taken, but I have no idea where they are. But my mum took me to a proper costume shop, and we spent an hour. And a woman came, and it was huge. She had a warehouse. If anything, you would think that this place was done for movies. That's how big this warehouse was. I don't remember where it was, but we rented out a full pirate Jack Sparrow costume with the actual mustache and with the bandana. And the woman actually showed my mum of how to put it all on properly, how to take it all off properly. I had the boots. I had, obviously it was fake, but I had the sword and everything. I even went as far as the little details of the compass that never works. I even had as far as that. And I went to this prom, and I was fully decked out as Jack Sparrow. I even had sort of the tattoos on the fingers. That's as far as I went. I don't remember where these photos are, and I wish I still had them. But that is how big of a fan of Pirates I was growing up. And by that stage, I think Dead at World's End had come out at that stage in well, the time that I was actually leaving primary school to go to the secondary school. So yeah, huge love, huge passion for Pirates. And I'm just really excited to watch the movie. I've just looked at the time and realised I've been gushing about Pirates for 30 minutes, which I do not apologise for, because if you wouldn't be listening to this review if you also wasn't interested in Pirates. So, welcome, my hearties. No, that was a terrible. Not going to do that. Sorry. I'm really in a really happy mood. So you're gonna have to bear with me. Maybe by the time that I watch the movie and actually do the review in a second, I have calmed down. We will see. But I'm now gonna go off and watch the movie, and I'll catch you in a minute. So on to the review. Right, so we're back, and I've not long finished watching Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of Black Pearl. Obviously, you know what I'm going to say. I love it. But one thing I do want to say, usually when I do a review of any sort of movie or series, as soon as I finish watching the film, I jump straight into writing my notes and recording down my first thoughts, and I edit it all together later on. But this is how much I love the Pirates movies. I put it on downstairs and started watching it. My mum came in, my brother came in, they started watching it. We all got really invested in it. It's been a long time since we watched the pirate movies. And then after the first one finished, I was getting ready to go upstairs and write my notes. And then my mum was like, "Can we put the second one on?" And I was like, "Yeah, go on then." So then we sat and we watched the second movie. And then my brother and my mum was like, "Go on, let's put the third one on." So I ended up watching the whole trilogy. I hadn't planned on it. I'd planned to watch one movie per review per episode, but I've now again watched the whole series. My little brother, he hadn't seen 4 and 5, Stranger Tides and Salazar's Revenge. By that stage, it was like 10 o'clock at night. I was really tired, and I was like, you know what? I haven't got the energy to sit and watch these films. So you enjoy it yourself, and he did, and he finished it off the next day. This morning he sat and watched Stranger Tides before he had to go to school. And I don't think he's watched Salazar's Revenge yet. Um, but yeah, I ended up watching the whole series, and that's just how much, not just how much I love them, but how entrapping these series is that you can't just watch one. It's like chocolate. If it's there, you can't have one. You've got to have the whole box. You know what I mean? And they are so much fun, and like it's so easy to get lost in the adventure, to get lost in the on the mystery of it all, the curses, the Davy Jones, the visual effects, the comedy, the weirdness of Jack Sparrow as the movies go on. He just gets more stranger, and you can't see me right now, but I'm doing the whole Jack Sparrow hands things. You know what I mean? Like it's one of them, and it's one of those series and one of those movies that, for me, just makes me feel like a kid again. Like I said, I am chasing that high of Amelie. I'm chasing that high of childhood, that high of that sort of drive of nostalgia, and I find it in these films. And after all these years, going back, I still love it. It's still fantastic. It's a perfect film from start to finish. There is nothing in it where I feel like that was too long, that was too short. Like everything was perfect, you know. Um, After all these years, it's generally still a fantastically great movie and series. Even in the second and third one, even though the movies got longer as a lot more things happened and the story went on, um, I was noticing things I hadn't noticed before, that like pretty much the pirate movies, yes, you have curses, yes, you have pirate booty and treasure and pirate code and that sort of thing, and hijinks with Jack Sparrow. But really, if you think about it, the story for the first three films is about love. You get the first movie where Will is trying his best to save Elizabeth, and sort of you also get Jack's arc as well, which I'll get to Jack's arc, right? That's love. Then you have Dead Man's Chest and World's End, which is the sort of struggle that Davy Jones goes through and the turmoil that he has with love and Calypso. Again, I'll get into that more so when I get to those movies, but it's very much love for the first three films. That's the driving force. If you take away the curses, you take away the mystery, it is a love story in a way going through it, but it's hidden so that it's not in your face, but it's there. And then you have sort of Jack's quest. Jack's quest is to be a pirate forever, to sail the seas forever. He wants to be undead, but then he realizes what comes with being undead is the fact of it's a curse. You can't drink, you can't eat, you can't enjoy, you can't feel. So when somebody touches you, you've got no sense of feeling or emotion. You are literally dead, but you're living. And you realise that's not worth it. Second film, he's trying to barter with his life for Davy Jones, and not to become the captain of the Flying Dutchman, but more so just the fact of have kind of what Beckett had, kind of have like Davy Jones under his thumb, being like, you're going to call off your beastie, you're going to leave me alone, and all our debts are going to be square. And he's always just trying to save his own life, and it's a game again with the third movie and with the fourth. It's all just Jack being like, I want to be a pirate forever. I don't want to die. And then he also realizes that, but at the end he's like, yeah, well, eternal life, what is it? I'll try to enjoy it while I've got it. And then we get to the last movie, and yeah. But these first three films, and Black Pearl, especially Black Pearl, is perfect. Now, sadly, I've never been to Disneyland. I've never had an opportunity to go and ride the Pirates of the Caribbean ride that inspired the movie, so I can't comment if certain things were the same as the ride, or certain songs or scenes or whatever. So that part of the review I sadly can't add. But I have heard things from people that have been on the ride that say that the first movie is loosely, quite in some scenes, faithful to the film. I can't expand on that, just what I've been told. But it's an interesting how like they were trying to do something. They were trying to base it off the ride, but also they paid homage to the ride, even though they tried to do something different, if that makes sense. Which I've been told apparently in newer versions of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, there is Jack Sparrow and there is a lot more of the movie in the newer versions of the ride than there is obviously in the older version of the ride, which I find quite fascinating. But yeah, the story here in Curse of Black Pearl, I love this idea that there is cursed Aztec gold that Cortez had plundered from the Aztecs, and that it was lost. and that they found this gold. Jack and Barbossa and his crew, but before Jack could get there, they mutilated him. They got rid of him. He was gone, and then Barbossa and the whole crew got cursed, and then they had to track down all 800 and something pieces of gold, which must have took them a long time. I think 10 years or so, thereabouts. 10, 13 years. No, yeah, but 10 years because, yeah, 10 years because then is a 3 year jump between the first film and Dead Man's Chest, because obviously Davy Jones says to him, it goes, you was a captain for 13 years, and then Jack Sparrow was like, well, actually, I was captain, no, 2 years, sorry. So I was only captain for 2 years, and I was viciously mutinied upon. And then Davy Jones, yes, a poor captain, but a captain nonetheless. Which, fantastic line. But it's interesting as well with the pirates themes of it as well. The whole cursed gold, cursed treasure, and that you have the undead ship, which we'll talk about CGI in a minute. Still looks incredible. And then you get Jack Sparrow brought into it, which again Johnny Depp does a fantastic job. And he meets Will, and then you have Elizabeth, and you have Barbossa, and they go on this adventure where Will comes to terms with the fact of his dad was a pirate. He has pirate instincts inside of him. He's not. He's still noble, but his thoughts and feelings on what pirate was and who pirates are is very different to what he thought at the beginning of the film to the end of the film, and for the whole series as well. And then you have like the admiral, the way he is, Commandant, Commandant Norrington, which I always felt was weird. One thing that I wanted to mention was that as rewatching this movie, and again, I know times were different. I'm not on about times when the movie was made. I'm not times like the 16, 1700s, about the time of piracy. I think about 1700s, possibly 18. I'm not really sure. Anyway, the point is I'm trying to make is the fact of, I know times were different back then, but you have at the beginning of the movie, you have Elizabeth Swann, who's, let's say she's, argument's sake, 11, 12, maybe 13. And you've got Norrington, who at this stage is not an admiral. He is just, I would imagine he's probably a captain, but he's not like a full-on admiral yet. And he is older, I would say, possibly in his late teens, probably early 20s. And it's really weird because how young she is and how old she is. And then it skips to when obviously Elizabeth is older. Let's say she's about 18, 19, maybe even 16, possibly. And Norrington, again, he's late 20s, late 20s. And he's like, I've always loved her. I've always been so attracted. I'm like, mate, it's a bit weird. Bit too old for her, so that always made me be a bit cringy. But again, I love Norrington's arc. I love how he is at the beginning of the movie to the end, to the last movie. And again, we'll look about these arcs and we'll explore them in more depth. But Norrington doesn't get a lot to do in this film. It's more the second and the third film that you get to see a lot more of Norrington. But the way this movie goes, it is perfect from beginning, middle, and end to pirate treasure, Port Royal being attacked, Elizabeth and Barbossa, their sort of relationship together, Will and Jack's new crew, and you meet Cotton and you meet Master Gibbs and the rest of the crew, and some of them are returning favourites in the rest of the series. And overall, it's very much and even Jack the monkey, which you love. It's perfect. Oh, absolutely wonderful. And again, moving on to like the CGI, it still holds up today. It still looks good today. I watched it on Disney Plus because my version of the DVD, I wanted to watch the newest version just to see if the CGI still holds up, because I've just got the original from like 2003, 2004 when the film come out, and I was like, I want to see the most best recent quality that I can. So I went on Disney Plus, and obviously Disney Plus streams it 180p, 4K, blah blah blah, all that. So I wanted to have that, and it still looks fantastic, even in higher quality, even a high quality TV, highly quality being run through the frame rate. It all looks perfect still, and I think it goes back to what I said in the introduction when I was talking about the development, is the fact that they made the characters act the scenes out multiple times in live action, in motion capture, and then it was all done in anime, and it was just done in such a way that it still looks fantastic. When you see Barbosa for the first time, when he comes out of the shadows and he goes, "You believe in ghost stories? Well, you're in one." And he just comes out, and it's still terrifying. I remember when I first watched it, it terrified me when I first watched it as a kid because it's scary, but it's cool. It's not terrifyingly scary. It's cool scary. And obviously they don't use the effect a lot, but when they do have the moments where you have live people versus the undead fighting is awesome for pirates. It's a very piratey sort of thing to happen, which is incredible. And I love the scene where Jack and Barbosa are fighting, and they're both undead, and it's so perfectly done, so perfectly edited. And I don't know how they did it. I wish I did know, so I could best explain it. But there's a scene where there are streaks of moonlight that is coming through the ceiling, and they're fighting, and seamlessly they're fighting normally as humans. Go into the light, they're undead. Out the light, one's in the light, one's not in the light, dead, alive, and it's a continuous this, and it's such an incredible scene, such an incredible epic fight, and it's like the CGI still works out, and it's the same with the practical effects and the sets. They rebuilt Port Royal. I did do my research. I was right. Port Royal was destroyed in an earthquake, and it's still there, but majority of the city is the town, shall we say, is underwater. Was destroyed during the earthquake. But they rebuilt Port Royal. They rebuilt a lot of the ships. They used some real sailing boats, ships, and others they kind of built barges, giant floating barges, and then built up upon the barges. And then some of it was actually done in studio, but it's all done so seamlessly that you would think that at all times they are at sea, at all times they are on a ship. At every moment you don't think, oh, they're not on a ship. Even when they're inside the cabin and you can't see the ocean, the way it rocks, the way it moves, the sound, everything just feels like, yeah, this feels like a ship. And that illusion with the practical effects mixed in with the CGI whenever they needed to do it works so perfectly. The Black Pearl looks incredible. The Port Royal looks incredible. The Interceptor, the Endurance, the British ships look to type of what they would have looked like for the time period. But also everything is just done so well that you just get lost in this adventure, as if they travel back in time and this all is the Caribbean. This is the time of piracy, the 1600s and to 1700s, that sort of feeling. It just feels so good to watch. And for me, being somebody who loves the practical side of things and using CGI when you need to is a wonderful thing. Now, this is the part of the review where I want to talk specifically about certain actors and certain characters. So obviously, got to begin with Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow. I can't, as I said in introduction, I can't see, and I was trying to picture it as I was watching the movie. What would Jim Carrey be in this role? What was the other ones that I said? What's his name now? Christopher Walken would be in this role, and the other sort of characters that I mentioned. What would they be like? And I can't imagine it. I can't imagine. To be honest, the only thing I could think of if Jim Carrey was to do Jack Sparrow would be it would be like Ace Ventura but at sea, which sounds incredible. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to see an Ace Ventura movie where he sort of he's at sea, he's a submarine trying to protect fish. That'd be awesome. But I don't think I'd want to see Jim Carrey in a pirate movie because I just don't think it would work. He doesn't have the look to him. He doesn't look like he could. He doesn't look like he could be a pirate, basically. Maybe a nobleman, but he just doesn't have that look that Johnny Depp has. And I'm not. Maybe it's the rose-tinted glasses because I'm so used to seeing and thinking whenever I hear Jack Sparrow, I think of Johnny Depp. Maybe it's that, but I just couldn't see anybody else in the role because Johnny Depp plays the role so perfectly. And this is what annoys me about the later movies, is the fact that they make him an idiot. I like to think of Jack Sparrow as Columbo. You think he's an idiot, but he's not. At the end of the day, he isn't. He is 2, 3 steps ahead of everybody. Yes, he's conniving. Yes, he is sneaking. Yes, he's at his own games, but he's a pirate. That's to be expected. But he's very clever. He makes you think he's stupid, but he isn't. Especially in this first film, he's very clever in this first film. Yes, he gets very lucky at times. I think majority of times he just makes it up as he goes along, and he just happens to, you know, survive. But the thing is with Johnny Depp and how he plays the role of Jack Sparrow is the fact of it's so Columbo-ish. It's so very much the fact of you all think I'm idiots, but actually, I'm way ahead of you all. I know where I'm going. I know what's going to happen next, and I'm not going to die. And I'm the one that's going to get out of this with the least amount of problems. And he always does. He always scrapes himself by. Anytime you think Jack's going to die, he gets stabbed in the chest by Barbossa. Next thing you know, he picks up a coin. He's got a coin. He's dead. He's like, oh, that's interesting, isn't it? It's like, wow, yeah, I didn't expect it, but he did it. Wow, it's so well done. And then his character development in the rest of the movies as well, which I'll get into more details in those films. But the way you see that, the way he's all paranoid in the second movie, and he's trying his best to survive. And you get to see him where he's back against the wall. It's an interesting with the second movie because you get to see him, like I said, back against the wall. It's like trying to trap a rat. You try to trap a rat, it's the worst thing you can do because that rat will do anything to get out. It will bite, it will claw, it will dig, it will do anything. And that's the kind of way Jack Sparrow is in the second movie. He's no longer the clever one in the room. It's the fact of like crap. David Jones is after me. The Kraken's after me. I got to do anything I can to get out. He's very more paranoid. And in the third movie, he's the fact of all of his friends left him to dead. He's a bit more manic, a bit more crazy, but he has a goal, and it kills me the fact of they made him an idiot in the last 2 movies, and it's really unfair to not just Johnny Depp but Jack Sparrow as a character, being somebody who is funny, crazy, manic, and you could even go as far as the fact of he wasn't always crazy. It's just the fact of, as Mr. Gibbs would explain, you're stuck on an island, you've been marooned by your men, you've been left to die. You've been given one shot because this is what happened when you was marooned. You'd be given a bottle of water, right? You'd be given a pistol with one shot, and if you were lucky, they would give you They would give you gunpowder. Like you'd either have the shot already pre-done, or they would give you gunpowder to fill the shot. So you just had one jug of water and a gun, right? And to think after a while, you're in that hot sun, you might not have any shade, there's no food, that gun starts looking pretty. You know what I mean? And that could set anybody crazy. And he did. And you find out that the legendary Jack Sparrow is not, he was sea turtles and with his own back hair and all that. No, it's just the fact of he's on a beach for 3 days, got drunk, probably planning out his revenge. And then lucky enough, some smugglers came, rescued him, didn't have to bite the bullet, so to speak, and was like, yeah, that's it. I'm getting my shit back, and I'm getting my revenge against Barbossa and my old crew. And he does. Most of them. Some of them survive. But Jack Sparrow in this movie, fantastic. As an introduction to a character, it's one of the best. One of the best introductions you can look for in any movie. It's the same with, again, Geoffrey Rush's Captain Barbossa. One of the best villains. Granted, he becomes kind of an anti sort of hero in the second, well, mostly in the last movie, and he shows up at the end of the second film. But Captain Barbossa, again, a fantastic character, fantastically acted by Geoffrey Rush. That you can see he has that need of life. When Elizabeth's first on the ship and she's sitting down to eat food with him, he has this sort of, you can see that it's not, again, it's going to sound weird, it's not that he's turned on, it's more just the fact of when she bites into the food, you can see that sort of urge, that sort of like that feeling over him of like, oh god, that was sort of like, was it that, like, oh my god, what's it like to chew, what's it like to eat, what's it like to drink? He's like, try an apple, just he wants another. He wants to hear the crunch and to see it go down Elizabeth's throat. It's again with the water. You can tell all this in his eyes. It's so well acted that he doesn't need to say anything. You can tell just by his body language, the way his eyes are, and the way he says, "Oh, try the drink." And the apple. It's the fact of I haven't seen any, but I can't eat. I've been able to eat for decades. I have not had the privilege of watching what is like to eat. Something that we all take for granted because we can all eat. But I would imagine if I couldn't eat and then I was able to watch others eat, I'd be staring at everybody. I would, because it's what you would do if you couldn't do something and then you saw everybody else could do it. You'd be fascinated. You'd want to watch them. You'd be, oh wow, what's that like? And again, it's just through the incredible acting of Barbosa that he doesn't have to say anything. That Jeffrey Rush can just convey the fact of, I wish I could do that with his eyes. I wish I could eat. I wish I could swallow. I wish I could know what an apple tastes like and know what chicken is like again without. Because whenever he says himself, do you know what it's like to drink but never quenches the thirst, or to eat food but to turn to dust in your mouth, and to not being able to feel the touch of a woman or a person on your body, not being able to feel anything, just to be a walking husk, a corpse, where you're dead but you're not dead, you are living but you're not alive. You know, again, some fantastic dialogue in this movie. Jeffrey Rush, Captain Barbosa has some of the best lines, best villain lines in the whole film, and he does have some great lines in the rest of the series as well. But these two, the reason I chose to talk about these two specifically is the fact of, as an introduction to a brand new character, as Jack Sparrow was, as Johnny Depp, did, perfect. As an introduction to the villain, who would then go on to become that loved, would be recurring character, is Captain Barbosa. Again, it just shows that you put a good actor in the role, that role will become timeless. Every time I think of Jack Sparrow, I think of Johnny Depp. Same with somebody says Captain Barbosa, I see Jeffrey Rush's face, and I see him eating an apple with Jack the monkey on his shoulder. It's just je ne sais quoi. It's perfect. Chef's kiss. There is two more that I wanted to mention, which is Pintel and Raggedy. Pintel is I know you're here, pop it, and then Raggedy is his mate who has the fake prosthetic wooden eye. I love these two. They're my favourite recurring characters in the whole series. It's just one of my favourite lines is actually in the second movie, and it makes me laugh every single time. Is the fact of they're on a little rowboat. They're in the middle of the ocean. They're getting towards land, and Raggedy is reading through the Bible. And he's trying to say to Pintel about sort of, we have to repent for our mortal souls, because obviously now they're human again, then they need to repent for their past mistakes and past deeds. And Raggedy looks at him and goes, "You know you can't read," and it always makes me laugh. Raggedy always looks at him and goes, "Well, it's the Bible. You get points for trying," and that is a line that I still quote to this day. It's like, you get points for trying. It is one of my favourite lines, and even they have the doggy as well. They even say they use the dog from the first film, and that's how they escaped. But they're my two favourite ones, and obviously they become members of Jack's crew, and even Jack goes, "Oh, I always liked you, two of my favourites," and Cotton as well, and the parrot, Cotton's parrot as well, who speaks for him. The whole sort of black Curse of Black, the Black Pearl crew that we get to see more of in the next two movies, I love. But Pintel and Raggedy are my two favourites because they have some fantastic, like, they're side characters, but they were side characters that were so well acted, and you can tell that both actors had so much fun playing the characters that they got more bigger roles, or even a sort of a continuous role. I don't know if that was always the plan, but they were that beloved and fan favourites that they got a recurring sort of role in the next movie with being part of Jack's crew. Because I remember when I first watched the second film, I didn't expect them to appear again. I thought they were like, that's it, they were part of Barbosa's crew, they were caught, and that's it, they were probably hanged and killed. Well, no, they become recurring characters and they join the Black Pearl, and it works perfectly. I'm glad that they are returning characters. Now, one thing for this whole movie that is recurring thing is the pirate code, and they keep throwing things out about the pirate code, about parlay, and that to enact the right to parlay you must be a pirate, and that parlay is more of a guideline really, and it's about honor, and that the pirate codes, it's loosey goosey really. It depends on who. Basically pirate code is all down to the fact of who whose ship you're on and what nationality is. So certain like British pirates and Spanish pirates, Chinese and Japanese pirates, and they were all different. They all had different rules. They all followed the same sort of code, but the rules would change on different ships, basically. And what I wanted to do here was to kind of talk about the history of the pirate code, which was really quite fascinating, really. So, the first set of pirate codes was supposedly written by the Portuguese buccaneer Bartholomew Portuguese sometime in the early 1660s, but the first recorded set belonged to George Cusack, who was active from 1668 to 1675. These early buccaneer articles were based on early maritime law and privateer codes, such as the 12th century rules of Orion. They were later used by buccaneers and pirates such as John Phillips, Edward Lowe, Bartholomew Roberts. Buccaneers operated under a ship's articles that, among other things, governed conduct of the crew. These articles of agreement became authority independent of any nation and were variously called the chasse partie, charter party, custom of the coast, or Jamaica discipline. In retrospect, these became known as the pirate codes. Pirate articles varied from one captain to another, and sometimes even from one voyage to another, but they were generally alike in including provisions for discipline, specifications for each crewmate's shares of treasure, and compensation for the injured. Each crew member was asked to sign or make his mark on the articles, then swear an oath of allegiance or honour. The oath was sometimes taken on a Bible, but John Phillips' men, lacking a Bible, swore on an axe. Legend suggests that other pirates swore on crossed pistols, swords, or a human skull, or astride a cannon. This act formally inducted the signer into the pirate crew, generally entitling him to vote for other officers and other affairs of moment, to bear arms, and to his share of the plunder. The articles having been signed, they were then posted in a prominent place, often the door of the captain's cabin. After a piratical cruise began, new recruits from captured ships would sometimes sign the articles, in some cases voluntarily, in other cases under threat of torture or death. Valuable sea artisans, such as carpenters and navigators, were especially likely to be forced to sign articles under duress, and would rarely be released regardless of their decision to sign or not. In some cases, even willing recruits would ask the pirates to pretend to force them to sign, so that they could plead that they were forced should they ever be captured by the law. Generally, men who had not signed the articles had a much better chance of acquittal at trial if captured by the law. Pirate articles are closely related to and were derived from ships' articles of the time, especially those of privateers, which similarly provided for discipline and regulated distribution of booty, though usually far less equally than with pirate articles. Merchant articles and privateering articles can be traced back to Europe in the Middle Ages, when there was a system of joint hands agreements between merchants, owners, and seamen to share profit. Some examples, right? So 9 complete or nearly complete sets of piratical articles have survived, chiefly from Charles Johnson, A General History of the Pirates, first published in 1724, and from records kept from Admiralty Court proceedings at the trial of pirates. A piratical code from Henry Morgan is preserved in Alexandria Extremelians 1678 book, The Buccaneers of America. Many other pirates are known to have had articles. The late 17th century articles of George Cusack and Nicholas Clough had also survived intact. Part of the reason that few pirate articles have survived is that pirates on the verge of capture or surrender often burn their articles or threw them overboard to prevent the papers being used against them at trial. So here's a example of articles of Bartholomew Roberts. Bartholomew Roberts' articles were similar but not identical to those of his former captain, Howell Davis. In turn, Roberts' articles influenced those of pirates such as Thomas Antis, who served under him and later went their own way. 1. Every man has a vote in affairs of moment. His equal title to the fresh province or strong liquors at any time seized, and may use them at pleasure, unless at secrecy, not an uncommon thing amongst them, make it necessary for the good of all to vote for retirement. 2. Every man to be called fairly in turn by list on board of prizes, because over and above their proper share they were on these occasions allowed a shift of clothes, but if they defrauded the company to the value of $1 in plate, jewels, or money, marooning was their punishment. If the robbery was only betwixt one another, they contented themselves with sitting with the ears and nose of him that was guilty, slitting, and set him on shore, not in an uninhabited place, but somewhere where he was sure to encounter hardships. No persons to game at cards or dice for money. The lights and candles to be put out at 8 o'clock at night. If any of the crew after that hour still remained inclined for drinking, they were to do it on the open deck. To keep their pistols and cutlasses clean and fit for service. To desert the ship or their quarters in battle was punishable with death or marooning. The captain and quartermaster to receive 2 shares of a prize, the master, boatsman, and gunner 1 share and a half, and other officers 1 1/4. The musicians to have rest on the Sabbath day, but the other 6 days and nights none without special favour. Again, there's articles from John Phillips. If any man shall offer to run away or keep any secret from the company, he shall be marooned with 1 bottle of water, 1 bottle of powder, 1 small arm, and shot. That man that shall strike another whilst these articles are in force shall receive Moe's law, that is 40 stripes lacking 1 on the bare back. That man that shall snap his arms or smoke tobacco in the hold without a cap to his pipe, or carry a candle lighted without a lanthorn, that's the thing that covers a candle, so keep it safe, shall suffer the same punishment as is the former article. The man shall not keep his arms clean, fit for engagement, or neglect in business, shall be cut off from his share, and suffer such other punishments as the captain and company shall think fit. If at any time you meet with a prudent woman, that man that offers to meddle with her without her consent shall suffer present death. If any man shall lose a joint in time of an engagement, shall have 400 pieces of 8. If a limb, so basically, if you lose an appendage like an arm or a finger, toe, foot, leg, whatever, you shall receive 400 pieces of 8. If a limb, you get 800 pieces, basically. So you had healthcare. It was about the fact of, like, if you lose an arm or a leg, it's all right. Let's give John a bit. He lost 2 arms and a foot. We'll give him some money. Then you've got Edward Lowe and George Lothar. They had ones like he that shall be found guilty of taking up any lawful weapon on board, the privateer, or any other prize by us taken, so as to strike or abuse one another, is any regard, shall suffer with punishment that the captain and the majority of the company shall see fit. He that shall be found guilty of cowardice in the time of engagements shall suffer punishment that the captain and the majority of the company shall think of. If any gold, jewels, silver, etc. be found on board of any prize or prizes to the value of a piece of 8, and the finder do not deliver it to the quartermaster in the space of 24 hours, he shall suffer what punishment the captain and the majority of the company shall think. Goods, quarters to be given when craved. He that sees a sail first shall have the best pistol or small arms aboard of her. He that shall be guilty of drunkenness in time of engagement shall suffer what punishment the captain and the company shall see think. No snapping of guns in the hold. And the rules, like I said, the rules are very much the same. They all had different ways of saying it. Like everybody gets an equal share. No drunken disorder on board. Everybody goes to bed at 8 o'clock. Don't hide. Don't keep secrets. Don't hide money. Like all jewels and booty is shared. If you don't agree, you're gonna get marooned on an island and stuff like that. There was It was like a democracy, really. The fact that we're all in this together. If anybody betrays that, then it's up to the captain and the crew to basically vote on what we do with that person. Do we maroon them? Um, do they get lashings? Do we kill them? Blah blah blah. It was a democracy. It was down to the crew. It was your peers against you. If you messed up, it was the fact of, all right, we'll all agree on what we do with this person. Do we keep him? Does he keep messing up, or do we get rid of him and maroon him? It wasn't. Again, it's cruel, but that's just how it was. It was a fact of we're all together for a long periods of time on the ship. We've all got to get along together. If we don't get along together, then there's anarchy, and there's no point piracy. If we gone into pirate each other, you're stuck together. It was a group thing, which I find kind of very honourable. Pirates aren't seen as very honourable people, but in a way they were. A lot of pirates were very honourable. It was the fact of when you're on the ship, you're part of the crew, part of the ship. What happens on the ship sort of goes on the ship. Just don't break any of the rules. As long as you follow them, and as long as you're fair and you keep your kind of like as the Navy is now, you're fair to each other. You get along. If there's an issue, you talk to the quartermaster or you talk to the captain, and then you try to debate it amongst yourselves, or everybody will come together and try to figure it out. Don't steal anything from each other. Like, we'll have a share, we'll have equal, so we're all equal. None of us is any better. The captain isn't got more than you, that sort of thing. I actually wanted to look at sort of mutiny. What are the rules of mutiny? The rules of mutiny. No. Rules of mutiny. Pirates. Mutiny. Right. Mutiny. Rebellion against. Rebellion against authority. This is the best known as sailors' revolt against the captain and officers of a ship. A participant of mutiny were called a mutineer. It was a conspiracy among a group of individuals to openly oppose, change, or overthrow a lawful authority to which they were subject. The term is commonly used for rebellion amongst members of a crew against their superior officer or officers, but can occasionally refer to any type of rebellion against an authority figure. Laws of mutiny. So, why do you do this? Mutiny are laws, to be clear. Our laws allow the captain to show leniency. I have given this man a chance to determine his fate, a gift not afforded to all. There were laws on how to handle mutiny, one of which states that the captain was allowed to show leniency towards the mutineers, which, again, very, very fascinating. United Kingdom, so there was a penalty. So in the United Kingdom, up until 1689, mutiny was regulated in England by Articles of War instituted by the monarch and effective only in the period of war. In 1689, the first Mutiny Act was approved, which passed the responsibility to enforce discipline within the military to Parliament. The Mutiny Act altered in 1803, and the Articles of War defined the nature and punishment of mutiny until the latter was replaced by the Army Discipline and Regulation Act in 1879. This in turn was replaced by the Army Act in 1881. Today, the Army Act of 1955 defines mutiny as follows. Mutiny refers to a combination between two or more persons subject to service law, or between persons that at least of whom are subject to service. Oh god, there was a lot of mutinies they've got from famous mutinies. So you got 18th century sack of Antwerp, one of many mutinies in the Spanish army of Flanders during the eight-year wars. This mutiny caused the province of the Hasenberg Netherlands to temporarily unite in rebellion against Philip II of Spain and sign of Petition of Gurth in 1700s. You've got the Discovery Mutiny in 1611 during the fourth voyage of Henry Hudson. After having been trapped in pack ice over the winter, his desire to continue inclined the crew to casting him and 8 others adrift. In 18th century, the Wager Mutiny, which is a book I'm actually currently reading by David Gran. The Wager Mutiny, the main body of the crew of the British warship HMS Wager, mutinied against their captain after she was wrecked on a desolate island off the coast of south of Chile. In 1741, the ship was part of a squadron bound to attack Spanish interests in the Pacific. A failed 1787 mutiny aboard the Middlesex occurred 2 weeks before HMS Bounty's final England departure, which included the lead mutineer of HMS Bounty, Fletcher, Christen's older brother, Charles. And God, there's been mutinies all the through times, even through the 20th century and after World War II, 21st century. There's been loads, but I just wanted to go through sort of the pirate code and the whole laws behind it. And as you can see, majority of the pirate code and the laws are all very much the same, of like most modern laws. And I like it how they had healthcare. It was the fact of, look, if you lose a limb or you lose any sort of joint of your body, you'll be given 400 pieces. But if it's an arm or a leg, you get 800 pieces, which to me sounds quite fair. But I wanted to mention that because it's always mentioned the pirate code and in all these movies, especially in this first movie, pirate code this, pirate code that. They just wanted to do some examples of the history of pirate code, and some of the articles that some pirates of certain nationalities and different crews followed, which like I said, I find really, really fascinating, quite interesting. But my overall thoughts coming to the end now of Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, is that it's perfect. I have no problems with this movie at all. The CGI still holds up. It's funny. It's full of adventure. It makes me feel nostalgic. It makes me like a kid again. I could watch this at any age and just fall in love. And like I said at the beginning, I had only planned to watch the Black Pearl, and I was getting ready to get up and to go about writing my notes and recording. And then when my mom was like, well, let's watch the second film, there was nothing in my brain was like, oh, no, I can't, I've got to go do something. My brain was like, okay, yeah, cool. I completely forgot what I was going to do. I completely forgot that I was going to record or write notes. I was just like, well, if you watch one, you can't not watch the second one. And it's the same with Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. Like, you watch one of them, you're like, well, I've got to watch the next one to see what happens. I know what happens, but I've got to see, And then next thing you know, you watch the whole trilogy, and it's like 11, 12 o'clock at night, and you're like, you know what, I gotta go to bed. But that's just how good these films are, and I look forward to going deeper, because not that this movie isn't quite deep, but a lot more happens with characters and story arcs and character arcs in the second and third movie. So I look forward to doing deep dives into them, especially Davy Jones. I don't see Davy Jones as a villain. This is a bit of a spoilers, not spoilers, but kind of a sneak peek into my thoughts on the second and third film. I don't see Davy Jones as a villain. I did when I was younger because I didn't understand, but the more I watch it growing up and getting wiser and going through the motions of life, going through the motions of love, having my heart broken, and falling in love and all that jazz, that I understand that he's not a bad person. He was a good man that fell in love, that was asked by the love of his life to ferry the souls of the dead, and that they would be together again, and that when they could be together again, she wasn't there. She didn't turn up, and he was cursed, and that he kept doing his duty because he loved her, but he got sour to love. He got corrupted to love, and that corrupted him. That corrupted his purpose, and that made him more fish-like, and that made the Flying Dutchman what it is and what it becomes. And yeah, David Jones is a fascinating character in these movies, and I can't, and the way Knightley plays them. Bill Knightley. Is Bill Knightley? I think it's Bill Knightley. Anyway, the way he's played and the way he's portrayed is absolutely incredible, and I can't wait to do a deep dive into him as a character. But overall, Curse of Black Pearl, 10 out of 10. Perfect movie. If you haven't seen the pirate films, I've potentially spoiled them for you, so I do apologise. But if you haven't seen them, definitely worth watching. If you have seen them, you just know how great they are. They are incredible. These are you see those memes online where it's that guy sitting at a desk and he's just like X, Y, and Z changed my mind. This would be one of those. This is where I would defend this movie, where I would sit there and go, Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of Black Pearl is a perfect movie. Changed my mind. And I don't think anybody could change my mind. I think this is one of them films that I am that steadfast. And again, maybe it's the fact that I really love pirates. Maybe it's the fact that I really like Jack Sparrow and I love these characters. I love this world, and that these films are so well done. Maybe it is all that. Maybe it's nostalgia as well. But I can't see anything wrong with these films. I can definitely sit down and Rick's lyrical about the problems that I have with the last two films very easily. But I struggle to sit here and go, I like this, but this was bad. Because I can't find anything bad in this movie. Anything that I didn't like. Everything just works. It's an adventure movie. I get lost in the adventure. I get lost in the spirit of it. And I just want to jump into the TV and become a pirate. I don't want scurvy. I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. No, thank you. If I could, I would take those oranges with me because that's all scurvy was at the end of the day. It was just lack of vitamin C. Because you're at sea at all times, all they were eating were like salted meats, and they couldn't drink water. If they had water, they didn't have a lot of it. They had more alcohol than anything, and you would probably find that the alcohol was actually a lot cleaner and less bacteria than in water anyway. So you would imagine that if you have a diet on alcohol and meat, you're going to lack the vitamins and the sustenance that you need, and you're going to get scurvy because you don't have any fruit or vegetables because they don't last very long at sea. So you're going to get scurvy, and that's all it is. It's a lack of vitamin C. That's it. If they ate an orange, they'd be fine, but they didn't have oranges. So if I could be a pirate, I'd take loads of fruit and veg with me so I don't get scurvy because that is vile. Just Google scurvy; it's nasty. But yeah, overall, I love this film. I love this franchise. I'm so looking forward to reviewing the next two movies in the franchise. But before we come to a close, trivia. I'm going to do a bit of trivia because I love my trivia. I love researching deeper into films and getting the trivia bits. So the clothing and smears of charcoal were used to conceal Johnny Depp's numerous tattoos. The Jack Sparrow tattoo on his arm in the movie is a fake, but he got a real replica after finishing the film in honor of his son Jack. According to screenwriters, commentary on the DVD, Will Turner is the best swordsman in the film, Barbossa and Commodore Norton are evenly matched, and Jack Sparrow is actually the worst. Which I found that out quite interesting when I listened to the DVD commentary, because yes, I listened to the DVD commentary, obviously. But I found that interesting because I would say again, Jack Sparrow is kind of like a savant when it comes with the swordsmanship. Is the fact of again like the Columbo, he looks like a fool. He looks like an idiot. He walks around like he's always drunk. Well, actually, here's a bit of trivia for you as well. When he walks around like that, that's not the fact that he's always drunk. Like, yes, he is drunk, but it's not because he's always drunk. It's the fact of it's his sea legs. When you're all, like, if you ever notice how Jack Sparrow walks on land to how he walks on a ship, when he walks on a ship, he looks a lot more stable. He looks a lot more sort of, upright. That's because he's used to living on ships and being on ships. He's used to the to and fro, the rocking of ships. So when he walks on land, that's just him being used to walking like being rocking all the time. So he's just used to walking around like he's bladdered, basically. I guess yes, he's probably sort of pissed as well. But you see what I'm trying to explain here. It's the alcohol is mixed in with his sea legs. But as I was trying to say, is I always seen as Jack Sparrow as being like very much of a Columbo because he is a very good swordsman. Again, but he's kind of like the hidden master kind of thing, the drunken master. Best way I like to think of Johnny Depp is the fact of you don't think he is a capable, dangerous fighter, but if you actually got into a sword fight with him, it would be the worst thing you could do. But I found that interesting on the DVD commentary. It was like Will Turner's the best, which yes, he practiced every single day since he was like 10. So of course he would be the best. Barbossa is an incredible swordsman. So is Commodore Norton. they are evenly matched. That would make sense. But Jack Sparrow actually being the worst, I don't believe it myself personally. But then again, if the screenwriter says it, it must be true because the screenwriter writes the story and writes the characters, so it must be true. Again, according to the DVD commentary, Jeffrey Rush has a theory that people watch the screen from left to right, just like when they read a book. Therefore, he tried to be in the left side of the screen as often as possible. He was particularly intent on doing this in the scenes with the monkey and Keira Knightley because he didn't think anyone would look at him otherwise. Johnny Depp wore contact lenses which served as sunglasses so he wouldn't be squinting in the sun at all times. And finally, there is a small scab on Jack Sparrow's jawline that gets bigger and bigger throughout the movie. The makeup artist and Johnny Depp did it on purpose as a prank. I never noticed that. I now got to go back and watch that film. Now to see that sort of small scab on his jawline that gets bigger and bigger. I never noticed that before. I didn't even know. So I'm gonna have to rewatch that scene now over and over. But overall, I love this movie. I really, really do, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the series as we go on. So yeah, so thank you very, very much for joining me today. I've been talking for 52 minutes. Jesus Christ. But I'm a big fan of pirates. Hopefully, I've inspired you to do some more research and to look more into pirate law and the pirate code and mutinies and read more pirate stories because they're fantastic. Hopefully, I've also inspired you to want to watch these movies with me. And yeah, so I love pirates, you love pirates, and I have been your host, Luke the Human. You've been listening to the Nerd Nostalgic podcast, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.